Good morning. I will try to let others in who are knocking at the door, but I want to get started here. I emailed an apology about yesterday, so I won't say any more about that. I feel much better about today and about people accessing what we're doing. So thank you all for being here. Um, I'll reiterate what I said yesterday about the funders because I did manage to share this yesterday, but this workshop is made possible through the Democracy and the Informed Citizen Initiative, which is administered by the Federation of State Humanities Councils. And there's a hashtag Hum Citizen. It's capital HUM Citizen. So if you want to talk to people in other parts of the country about democracy and the relationship between journalism and the way things work in our country or the way they're supposed to, you can do it with that hashtag. But we thank the Andrew Mellon Foundation for generous support of this initiative and the Pulitzer Prizes for their partnership in it. And we will talk in the future more about what that partnership means for us in Alabama if you remain part of what we're doing here. But this morning, I want to take a couple of minutes to thank our partners in this, all of whom are represented in our session this morning, thank goodness. First is the David Matthews Center for Civic Life. They build skills, habits, and capacities for more effective civic engagement and innovative decision-making statewide. They do this through programs and partnerships and publications, including something I want to mention to you, which is a new issues guide on Reconstruction that came out just last week. They do their work in all 67 counties, just like we do at the Alabama Humanities Foundation, and they're invaluable partners. So if you want to learn more, you can go to matthewscenter.org. And I want to point out that's Matthews with one T. Another crucial partner is the Pacers newspaper network. And Pacers is a multi-decade cooperative of small rural public schools and communities across Alabama. This year, Pacers is establishing a network of newspapers published in small rural Alabama communities. The newspapers will be projects of local Pacers chapters, and in virtually all cases, they're going to involve schools and young people. If you want to know more about Pacers, Jack Shelton and others from the network will be presenting or having a conversation that we get to listen to tomorrow. So you'll learn more about them tomorrow. Jack gave me my first job out of graduate school, and so I spent a few years just listening and learning when I did that work. And I'll just say one more thing. Newspapers, we know that means print, but what the network is saying is that for the Pacers network, it's going to include online and other forms of communication. And you can learn more about Pacers at pacersalabama.org. And finally, the Caroline Marshall Drawn Center for the Arts and Humanities at Pebble Hill. Nan is sitting in there right now at Pebble Hill. The Drawn Center, which is headed by Dr. Mark Wilson at Auburn University, is another partner without whom I can't imagine we would have done this workshop or much else that we do lately, actually. They do excellent work. They offer, sponsor, and promote programs statewide that help make connections between democracy and the humanities. Through work they do in partnership with a lot of people, like today, the David Matthews Center. There's a partnership called the Living Democracy Project that's represented by some of you here today. So there are really too many things to try to name, but I want to thank the Drawn Center for Partnership. They serve as Auburn University College of Liberal Arts Center for Civic Engagement. And I don't know, I would send you to their Facebook page. They have a web page, of course, that's on the Auburn University page. They have a really great Facebook page where you can do a lot of things like this or participate in webinars and listen to lectures through Facebook. So there are three main partners, but two other partners I want to mention are, of course, the Auburn University School of Communication and Journalism, and also the University of Alabama College of Communication and Information Sciences. So that's really all I want to say this morning as intro, except that I appreciate Kathy Cook yesterday in the chat feature. Familiarize yourself with that. And feel free to play around with Zoom. As nervous as I get about these things, I've learned you can't really mess it up. So if you go down to chat, you can send me a message, and I'm going to try really hard to monitor the chat. I'm letting some other people in. Hang on. But I appreciated Kathy yesterday in the chat asking about the recording, asking, did I intend to record? And I did intend to record, but I absolutely should have let you know that we were doing that and why. We are doing that for the funders that I mentioned at the top. Please understand that if we ever do anything with this material, like put it on YouTube or anything like that, we're really going to be editing it first, and we will be sharing out what the presenters did. And if we were to want to share something that one of you said, I would need to get in touch with you. So I hope that everybody is comfortable with that, but that is why you see the little recording going on at the top. So, all right. That's all I want to say. Nan, do you have anything to say before we begin our community snapshots?
I'm just eager to hear about those communities. So,
me too. We'd absolutely need to get started because we're talking about maybe 30 seconds for each of you who want to do this. It's hard to tell right now because I don't know. You don't have to do it, and so I don't know who's really going to. But here's how I want to do this. If you will bear with me, this is my idea. I'm sure someone has a much better idea, but I'm thinking if you want to share your answer to the 2 questions yesterday about one great thing going on in your community that the world needs to know and something else that you would like to see improved. If you would shut off your video, and then I will see your name and I will call your name, and you can share, and then you can just stay with your video on, if that makes sense. Okay. Can anybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Okay. Thank you very much. Did Katie Jackson want to share?
Hey, Laura, I'm just lurking. And
you.
you can hear in the background, I have 4 out of 6 grandchildren here, so I'm going to stay muted. I'm just going to listen in.
Fine.
Thank you. All right.
Fine. What about Lisa Chavez in Huntsville? Hi.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cynthia Shavers. I'm with Alabama A&M Small Farms Research Center. I work with socially disadvantaged limited resource farmers throughout the state of Alabama, central Mississippi, lower Tennessee, and central Georgia. So I pretty much cover the entire state as well as neighboring states. I can't say the best thing that's kind of going on in Huntsville, because I am in Huntsville, is the community is really coming together and actually serving the individuals that don't have much funding, don't have much resources. And so I'm really liking that and wanting to, and it's a part of the change movement. I see a lot of changes going on here in Huntsville with racial issues. So Huntsville is actually a progressive city, and they actually are leading the way, I think, compared to most areas in the state of Alabama. I guess what I would like to see, or what I'd like to see more highlighted, is more information pertaining to farmers in the South. There are a lot of farmers, minority farmers, that are doing a lot of great things, but you don't hear about them in the news, you don't hear about it in the newspaper. So that's the change I really would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you tell everybody what you do at the research center?
I work with socially disadvantaged farmers on agriculture issues. It can be related to risk management strategies, food safety issues, sustainable agriculture practices, credit worthiness, and financial management. So it's we are a clearinghouse for the farmers. I've been there 18 years with the university working with Small Farms Research Center.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
Roger Thorne.
Morning.
Hi.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as Laura knows, and the rest of you, I'm sure don't, I work for the Blount County, and it's a small newspaper in Aniana. And I've always thought that the problems that we should be, or the issues we should be discussing in the paper are the systemic societal problems, racism, poverty. But lately, I've come to realize that one of our biggest problems is this idea that the media, the mainstream media, is the problem. And I had a conversation with a friend the other night, and he was complaining and said something to the effect that if the media would just go away for 6 months, everything would be fine. And I dug down into that with him for a while, and I finally asked him, what is your media source? Where do you get your news? And he said he gets it from Facebook, Twitter, and Trevor Noah, which there's no journalism involved in those platforms, and Noah's a late night comic. So I don't know how to address that. And that's really what I had to say.
Sean, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to hear about Chatham.
Okay. Well, hi, my name is Sean Atchison, and I just graduated from Washington County High School. One good thing that's happening in my community is with COVID and the dangers that has presented to students and really just vulnerable people, our churches and our local schools have really stepped up to provide for those people. And I think that's just amazing. Something the world needs to know, that even when government fails to take care of its people, there are people who will step up and help others out. But one thing I want to see improved in my community is race relations. In Chatham, no one wants to have the difficult conversations around race. Most people don't want to talk about the racism that even themselves perpetuate sometimes. And none want to talk about the special obstacles faced by Black and brown children in our schools and in our community. So that's what I had to say.
Thank you.
Nan, did you say yes?
Yes.
He's right. Nobody in the community wants to talk about that because it's uncomfortable. And I've written about it, racism, systemic racism, and we naturally lost some subscriptions, and I've been asked to do things I'm not going to do. But what I have learned is there is and I call them the underground of support to get those issues out in the open and to talk to them. And if somebody can bring that to the community, either through the paper or a protest or whatever, you will find there's a lot more support for talking about the issue than you ever thought there was before.
Thank you. Pam? Something good and something that needs work in your community?
Yes, I think can you hear me?
Yes.
Nan? Okay, great. I think what I had planned to say that was good, I teach at a community college, and it's a special place. We have dormitories. We're small and rural, and we have, of course, another campus that's much more urban, but I think we're in a unique position in the education system, and particularly in this part of the state, to increase the perception in the community of education is a good thing. And I realize that some of you may not realize that there are people who think it is not, but it's a complex situation. And I think that here, some of the good things that happen are based on that natural affinity a small community has for an asset, such as our college, and we can build on that. What I would love to see is education that responds to the issues of racism, materials such as the new issues publication on Reconstruction. I have said for years, completely ineffectively, we don't teach that. We don't. Do you know when I learned about Jim Crow? Grad school. Oh my God. So, oh my goodness, I sound like my students. Oh my God. But it's, we need more of that, and we need it from within the community, because the conversations that come from within the community have a little better chance of people listening. Sometimes they don't just shut down because that's someone from somewhere else. So those are the things that I'm thinking about. I really like what Roger Thorne said. I love Blount County. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful part of the world. I grew up in Coleman County. Oh, but hon, let me tell you, those people need to talk. They got issues. So, and I'm from Clay County. Okay, so I'm kind of bi-communal. I have multiple communities. Anyway, that's what I think the community newspaper can be, and I'll talk about this tomorrow with Jack in that group a little bit. He won't let me talk long. but I, those are things that are important to me, and I just appreciate the fact that all of you, some of you whom I do not know yet, are interested in this. So.
Well, I was pleased to meet through this forum Samantha Gomez. Are you with us, Samantha?
Yes, ma'am, I am, and it was a pleasure meeting you as well. I can share. I think one of the great things that I can say about my community right now is that in the midst of COVID-19, I really appreciate the camaraderie that I'm seeing in the community. We've actually had several food distributions this month and partially last month, and that has meant a lot to me because I know that a lot of our community members need that support. I would say that one of the things I would like to see change as of right now is our census numbers. I would really like to see an increase in the response to the census for my community, for my area, for my county. So that's what I would share.
What I put in there this morning. Your password, Fred, for your computer, for your email.
Can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Yes, ma'am. I am a youth organizer for SRBWI, which stands for Southern Rural Black Women's Initiative. And the SRBWI has another program called the Unita Blackwell Young Women's Leadership Institute. And I work for them, and we work with young women across 3 states, Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. And we, as the name says, we mostly work with rural Black women. On a daily basis, I normally work with about 20 to 40 young women just in my area, but across 3 states, we work with 60 plus young women. We just really try to get them the resources they need. We educate them about social issues that's going on in their areas. And right now we actually have our Young Women's Leadership Institute running concurrently with you all with the Alabama Humanities journalism sessions. And our session starts at 2:00 today. Today we're just gonna be talking about SRBWI and its inception, how it began, because we just want our young women to pretty much, know how everything started, because we have a really rich history. So that's just a little bit about it. I can just give you a little snippet right here. The Southern Rural Black Women's Initiative for Economic and Social Justice promotes the first human rights agenda in the United States aimed at eradicating historical, race, class, cultural, religious, and gender barriers experienced by Southern rural Black women.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I know, one of the things you might have been talking about, and I forgot to add this, we have another, SRBWI has several different programs, but one of them is called Southern Journeys. And Southern Journeys is a collective of women who sew and make all types of creative things. So one of the things SRBWI has been wanting to do in the midst of COVID is engage the young women in different ways. And one of the ways they wanted to do that was to start an online sewing class for the young women. But our barrier is we do not have enough sewing machines. So I did submit an article in the Progressive Era in my town, just as a call for help. Anyone who had any sewing machines who aren't using them anymore or would be willing to loan them to our young women to start on this project, we were just asking for their help. So that's another project we're working on right now. Thank you for letting me share that, Ms. Fairley.
Thank you. Laura, you're ready to?
We're still trying to get Michael on here.
Okay.
I'm not seeing that.
So let me do that, and y'all keep talking. I'm enjoying listening. Thank you very much.
One of our Living Democracy students, Thomas Chapman, are you on?
Yes,
Tell us about what you're doing this summer and what's good.
So I just finished my first year at Auburn University. I'm working with Living Democracy under the Matthews Center, and Nan is one of the heads of it. So is Mark Wilson. He's the leader of the program. And I just couple things about my community. I don't know if anybody's familiar. So I'm from Saraland, and Saraland has grown exponentially in the past 10 years. About 10 years ago, our school system split from Mobile County, and we formed our own school system and built a new school. And ever since then, the community's been growing very quickly. And I think one good thing is they have been working to put everything new in. They've been working to put in all the stuff that we need in Saraland. But one bad thing about it, I feel like, is they've lacked on putting in stuff that's more community oriented, and they've mostly focused on the economic side of it. They just installed in the past 4 years, they've installed 3 new shopping centers that each have like an array of businesses. And I just feel like a lot of their focus has been just purely businesses. I will say though, I might eat my words here. They are planning about a year ago when I was on I was a junior city council member. They had a proposal for a sports center. It's $1 billion project. And I've seen there's already been a project like this that Saraland proposed, a large project like this that didn't end up going through. So I'm curious as how that's going to end up. But I just feel like the community is lacking in places that have community building. like those sports centers, like we don't have very good established news. We have the call news, and the call news mostly focuses on Mobile and Citronelle. So we don't have those things that kind of build community rather than just the purely economic side of it.
Well, very good. Who else can tell us something good, positive news, and maybe something that could be better? Hillary, I'd like to hear from you and what you've been doing.
878.
Me? Is that okay? Hopefully you guys can hear me over them chopping down this tree in my backyard. But I'm at AUM. I'm not from here originally, but I've been here for about 5 years now. And one good thing about Montgomery that's happened recently is that we elected our first Black mayor, and he has been really great just in the first few months of his tenure. He has been on the national news quite a bit, talking about the situation with COVID-19 here in Montgomery and how they're handling it. And also with talking about race relations and, you know, the police reforms that he envisions and talks he's been having with the community members and the police chief in Montgomery to try and figure out how we can better provide for our African American population. So he's been doing a lot of good, and I really look forward to seeing what he's going to do in the next 4 years. One thing that I think that our area could use is maybe kind of similar to what was said about the area near Mobile. We don't really have a whole lot of community here in Montgomery. Like, there are a lot of separate communities, mostly based in like churches or around different organizations, but we don't see unity among all of those organizations. So as an example, when we were trying to put together protests in Montgomery, we would have lots and lots of people want to participate, but it was always a very small group. So we'd have like a protest an hour for every different organization that wanted to organize a protest. We didn't have just a big mass of people come around in large to try and voice their opinions. And I think that a lot of that is just because we don't have you know, like you said, a good local source of information where everybody can kind of contribute and share their ideas and come together around those.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Shelton.
Yeah.
You know more about all this work than anybody in the room. And so I know you will be talking to everybody tomorrow, but if you could just tell everybody a little bit more about Pacers and any other stellar comments you have.
Well, one thing about Pacers is that it has been racially inclusive from the beginning. We've had programs with schools on Sand Mountain and schools at the bottom of Monroe County. And so I think Gene Mosley's on and Pam Horn's on and Gary Burton's on and Mary Howard's on this, and any of them know better than I do about that. But one of the things we found early was when we were working with schools, the schools were valuable enough to overcome in small rural communities racial divides. I remember Sweetwater had a big, years and years ago, Sweetwater had a big meeting and I was there, and they were trying to decide whether they would break off and have a black public school and a white private school, whatever they are. And the people in the community decided it was time to quit looking at color and keep their school going. Now, I don't know what happened over the years, but that was probably 25 years ago. So there are places where I think people have tried, maybe not successfully, but have had these discussions. In terms of Pacers, I cannot overemphasize the unrecognized talent and capacity in small rural schools and communities. They are full of bright and capable and committed people who all suffer from the great leaving, the great migrations, the largest probably in human history, out of the Cotton South and the Appalachian South, so that these communities see their most likely leaders leave, and that results often in a kind of passivity. We're interested in starting this rural newspaper network because it will require people in the 5 participating communities to work together in the network, but to work together locally in order to document places that are undocumented, to identify issues that go untalked about and unaddressed because those communities lack political power altogether, and because for the most part, the schools are 90% free and reduced, or there's a considerable amount of poverty. And I don't like to talk about the poverty and under-resourcing very much, because those become ways these communities and these people are identified. And they're a hell of a lot smarter and a hell of a lot more capable people than to be identified as, well, they don't have enough, or oh, they're overlooked. They are capable people. They're a resource for every state and for the whole nation. So I'm a lucky man. I'm in my mid-80s, and I've spent 45 years working with people in small rural Alabama communities. And I would add one other thing to this conversation, and that is when Pam Horn lied about when she learned about whatever it was she learned about in grad school. One of the things is that our history, and we're talking humanities here, our history is not open to discussion to enliven the debates. Well, of course, there's no debate in Alabama really, but if there were a debate in Alabama about racism and in the past, we don't have the historical information perspectives necessary to enter into a decent conversation. And a friend of mine wrote a book about the Alabama Cavalry Brigade in the Union Army. Everybody online certainly knows about that, right? Everybody knows that there was a way for white boys to get out of Alabama to join the Union Army. Everybody knows about that, right? My point is, we don't know about it. We have no idea about things like that. We think the South is the damn Gone with the Wind South, and it's not. Well, anyway, I've talked longer than Pam, and I'm gonna shut up now.
Well, thank you very much.
The Alabama Archives announced just yesterday that they apologized for the lack of historical record during segregation time, and they said they vow to try to make up that, but a lot of the records are lost.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah,
that's true.
Big
Nan,
today.
Nan, can I please redirect briefly?
Yes.
I want to make sure that Jack understands the graduate school I was referring to was the first time I went to graduate school before I met him, not the more recent return to graduate school. And the information about the archives is actually something I pulled into my plans to talk about yesterday. That's related to newspapers, but we'll talk tomorrow about that.
Well, following up on Jack's comments about what we do and don't know or recognize about history, Kristen Foster, David Matthews Center, I think it would be a good time to talk about the issue guide again and probably maybe reflect on what you've heard so far this morning from different communities.
Yes, so I'm so glad to be here and just appreciate getting the chance to listen to all of y'all. So yeah, last Friday we launched an issue guide that we had been working on for over a year on the era of Reconstruction. It's not like the wonderful report that EJI released last week about Reconstruction. This is a classroom resource similar to our other historic issue guides on the Creek War, women's suffrage, 1963 in Birmingham. Those are the ones we've gotten so far, but we plan to continue writing these for many eras of Alabama history. We work not only with scholars and historians, but also teachers, community educators, and we also worked with the class of students at Central High School who created they co-created with some professors, the first Black History course taught in their public school that was designed by students along with the faculty. And so it's designed to be a resource to help students discuss, not only learn more about the Reconstruction era, but also to discuss what it was like to live then, and particularly learn more about the many challenges faced by recently freed people during that era. And our hope is that young people will not only learn more about Reconstruction, but develop civic skills related to empathy, perspective taking, critical thinking, all of those things that help prepare them to deal with issues today. We also hope that the students will see how that era in history still impacts to a great extent the way that things are done here in Alabama. I mean, just thinking about the lack of home rule that we have in communities goes back to the 1901 Constitution that came out of the Reconstruction era. And so, yeah, our hope is that this will be a great resource for young people and for teachers across the state. Yeah, so there's a lot that we need to talk about in Alabama history, and a lot that I know, thinking back to my time studying Alabama history in fourth grade, there's so much that is missed because we only talk about it in fourth grade. Even if you have a great teacher who does go into detail about the very challenging and difficult aspects of our history, we need to teach it more than in fourth grade. And so our hope is to provide additional resources to help teachers do just that with their students. We also have a discussion guide on monuments and memorials, which probably needs to be updated now that thanks to the new things that are happening in our communities across the state with some of the monuments coming down. And so that's another tool that students have used to talk about the memorials and monuments in their communities and what they mean and what to do with them, and how do we look at and interpret history. Yeah, but I've really enjoyed hearing from everyone this morning and look forward to continue hearing from everyone. So many communities that we've had the pleasure of working with are represented here, and I really appreciated what Sean said earlier from Chatham. You know, we've worked a lot with Dr. Jessica Ross at the Washington County Public Library System, and Sean, I really resonated with what you said. I spent a lot of my childhood just up the road in Clark County, and it really is disappointing to me that even today, you know, I moderate a lot of forums across the state. Sometimes when you bring up issues related to racism, particularly systemic racism in communities, that unfortunately there are people, like you said, who just don't want to talk about it and try to yeah, try to shove it under the rug rather than dealing honestly with our history and our present. Man, I'm not sure if that's what you want me to talk about.
It is. That seems to be a kind of a theme today, starting with our newspaper editor. We people don't want to talk about it. So, but I think that that's one of the things that the media, journalism, big, large, and small, we need to be on the story.
Absolutely.
Do we have anybody from University of South Alabama with us this morning?
Yeah, we have several of us.
Okay, I'd love to hear from y'all and what you're doing, and maybe how some of this storytelling idea that underlies what we're talking about might relate to what y'all are doing. So if you can tell us what y'all are doing.
I'm there. We have several students and Dr. Cook on. I'm going to say something really quick, broadly about our community, and then I'd love to let the students talk about what we're doing, and Dr. Cook as well, Kathy Cook. Really quickly, one thing that is a very positive, I believe, that's going on in Mobile is that the story of Africa Town and the story of the Clotilda have become more known. The Africa Town has an incredible, rich history, and there have been many people around the region, around the nation, who are from Africa Town, grew up in that area of Mobile County, in that area which is now part of the city of Mobile, that have been doing lots and lots of work to preserve history, to support the residents who continue to live there, to work on environmental issues, environmental justice, and all those kinds of things. And now that story is becoming well known and an important part of our world history. And so I'm very, very proud of the people that I know in the work, and their leadership is extraordinary. And it's a story that will evolve for a long time to come, and is beginning to define Mobile and its own understanding of itself in a very new and important way. So I want that's very, very positive. And I think that tied into some of what Kristen just said, finding ways to ensure that that story is not lost, that there's not one story, there are many, many stories. I think that's what we're struggling with. And while continuing to do the important work of rebuilding and supporting and lifting up and following the lead of the residents of Africa Town specifically. So wanted to talk about that. That's not directly tied to our project, so I'm going to shut up now and let other people speak about our project to do with that is part of the David Matthews Center program.
Thank you.
I'm hoping that Lex, Ruby, or Brant, who are all here, might want to say something. So one of you please interrupt me, but just to offer a little bit more from the University of South Alabama. Shannon mentioned obviously a really important part of our community, the work that the university is interested in. Not as engaged, I think, as many of us would like with, actually, but that's a different question, and it's an important element of Mobile. The other thing, a very humanities focused, is our work with the David Matthews Center and the I say JOIP, Joyce O'Connor Snyder Internship Program. Brant, Ruby, and Lex are all our interns, and we are talking, you know, the comments made earlier about history, humanities, it's obviously a subtext that's all throughout, but we're focusing our internship effort on communities' engagement with their history. We're working on focusing on that, focusing in particular on Baldwin County near the Five Rivers Delta and the history of Confederate, of Civil War battles, I should say, and the U.S. colored troops who fought there in a decisive battle of Fort Blakely. I'm a historian, but this is not my area of expertise, so I'm hesitant to go too far with that. But what we are doing is finding out what people know about their history. So earlier comments about not having heard about Jim Crow prior to graduate school, and limited understanding or desire to talk about our history. It really shows up in the process that we're going through. So we're trying to record oral histories that help us. Well, we're building our work on previously funded currently funded Alabama Humanities Foundation grant, which we're really grateful for. Thank you. To collect oral histories. And then our JOIPs are working to help us understand the relationship between community, history, and environment. I could go much further than that, but just so you know, we're collecting oral histories, and we are using those as one of our anchors in the community as we develop our assets and our understanding of community needs, with history being an important focus.
Well, thank you. Ellie Arnold and Addison, you just participated in what was your first Juneteenth celebration. We're speaking about history and community events. So Addison, if you want to start and tell folks a little bit about Opelika, Auburn. That's one community we haven't talked about, but more importantly, probably your experience with learning about Juneteenth and how you went about doing it, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Nan said, I am from Auburn. Not only do I go to Auburn, but I've grown up in Auburn pretty much all my life. So that is my my community. And also, like she said, previous to last Friday, I had never celebrated Juneteenth before. I mean, I kind of knew about it. I knew that it existed, but I hadn't learned anything about it in school, or I just didn't know about it. And Opelika last Friday had a community event, a celebration of Juneteenth. And I was fortunate enough to get to go, and it was really wonderful for me because, and this kind of ties into the question that we were asked to think about, like many of you, I wish that in Auburn and Opelika, people were more willing to listen to each other. I would love to see us break down the notion that my experience is the experience, and that's all that there is. End of story. And at that event, I saw people listening, which is great. So I got to I got to hear and listen to people's stories that I had never had the chance to listen to before. I got to learn about something that I had never learned about before, and really understand why it was significant, and why it was important, and just to feel that connection with my community was very special.
Well, thank you. And Ellie, anybody with 50 Fun on today that want to talk about your organization and how you tell stories? I think that's important for us to hear about your own storytelling efforts. If you can comment on that, after you tell us a little bit about 50 Fun.
I'll start it off and then I'll bump it over. We have two other representatives, Rebecca Tarochi and Jessica Connolly, on as well. So I can kick it off with just a brief overview of what we are, and then I'll bump to them because both of them had a part in Friday as well. With Friday specifically in the Juneteenth celebration, we worked with other organizations, both people in the city and individuals from the Boys and Girls Club. Janotica was amazing, and we worked with her in production. She'd already started it. We wanted to do something. We all just ended up collaborating together. But the 50 Fund, we work in different communities, and we focus on clean, safe, beautiful communities. And we are predominantly focused around Camp Hill, but we also work in the whole county around it as well, with some stuff in Auburn. So I'm just going to leave that there and see if Jessica and Rebecca want to say anything else.
I'll go for it. Yeah. 50 Fun is really like, I think for me, it's really like focused on the youth and focused on the children. We started off with summer camps in Camp Hill, and that's how we kind of began, was giving those kids a chance to, you know, they learned to swim, they learned first aid, they learned horse riding, they learned like so many things. We brought theater into it and showed them how to find their voice and how to express themselves through that. But I just think it's really important, and I think our whole organization can stand by this, that the youth are the people that are gonna make change, you know. And you just see that in everything going on today, and just every movement has someone young behind it who has, you know, surpassed what anyone would think of them to do. Same thing with Juneteenth. There were so many younger people there leading and working and creating such an environment. So yeah, I just think that that's one of our biggest focuses, is focusing on the youth and giving them the education and the voice and the focus that they need to become the leaders that we need later.
Well, thank you.
I also believe that, or I also know that we love to focus on storytelling, because there are so many people who have stories out there that really need to be heard. 2 years ago, sorry, did anyone say, was that me? I heard an echo.
You're good.
Okay, great. Called This Is Me Now. Kayla Tarochi, she told her story through art, and there was singing and dancing, acting. That was really beautiful. You can go on our YouTube channel, The 50 Fund. We have some stories on there. I think there's one about Prince Arnold. And yeah, we love to make sure that nobody is silenced and that people are heard.
Thank you. Who else?
And Ann?
Yes.
Michael Davis is actually with us.
Very good.
He's only here by phone, so you're not going to see his face, everybody. But I thought, since we don't have too much time left, maybe we would let Michael speak for just a few minutes. And he's offered that we can schedule the full workshop that he was going to do at another time. And so we would love to do that, and we'll be in touch with all of you about participating if you would like to do that. But anyway, Nan, I was trying to get you the message that he's on.
Okay.
I think he is. Michael, are you on? He was. I saw him.
I'm
Michael.
on.
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. We hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
All right. Well,
Nan had a nice little intro of you, but I don't know. You can.
We'll just let you introduce yourself briefly.
Okay, that's fine.
thank you, Nan. That's fine. Hi, everyone. And this proves that anything that can go wrong will go wrong sometimes. We cannot figure out what the technical problem is that has prevented me from joining you. But look, I look forward to presenting the full webinar at a convenient date for you. I will adjust my schedule to make absolutely certain that I'm there for you. And I was so looking forward to coming to Alabama and doing it in person. But, you know, the good Lord had other ideas, I guess. So let's just say that I can give you a really compact definition of solutions journalism and tell you what it is that we're doing and what we're trying to encourage others to do. And basically, we want to rebalance the news. We just feel at Solutions Journalism that we are so focused on presenting problems in our society and doing problem stories that we forget to go beyond the problem and report on how people are responding to the problem. And, you know, whether it's rising tides in coastal communities or any education topic that you can name, whatever it is that's troubling a community, there likely is another community nearby, perhaps, or in a state or in another country that is responding to the problem in a different way. And we can learn from that. And so solutions journalism says, look, somebody out there is doing it better. And who is it? Find that that group or find that community and report on what they're doing and bring it back to your community. And what inevitably happens when you do that is you change the discussion in town. You add new elements to the conversation, and to maybe present the idea that a problem that you thought was intractable maybe isn't. Maybe there are some ways to get at it that you haven't thought of yet. So the most important thing I want you to remember about solutions journalism is that it is evidence-based. It takes a lot of rigor to do this kind of reporting well. So the one sentence that describes solutions journalism is it's rigorous, evidence-based reporting on responses to social problems. And we have seen some whoppers in the last few months, notably COVID-19. And if you go and visit our website, solutionsjournalism.org, you'll see that we have collected a huge number of stories from throughout the country and, frankly, from throughout the world about how others are responding to the pandemic. Ideas in place that in some ways are fascinating. Those stories aren't always coming across on the airwaves and our news pages. They've been kind of bumped aside by the very urgent problem stories that we have to report. But at Solutions Journalism Network, we really encourage people to make room for the stories that can tell the whole picture of what's going on about a societal problem. And, some of you may remember the Ebola crisis and how we were absolutely inundated with the scariest stories imaginable about that scary virus. And but at the same time that everyone was reporting about the dangers of Ebola, there were people working steadily at measures to mitigate against the disease. And those stories were few and far between, but they were out there. And it's up to us to try to find ways to make certain that while we are digging out the important stories to define the problem and its scope, that we look for those who are making progress against the problem. And it was very true of Ebola that people felt inundated by the scary stories. And people feel inundated by the news in general. We all know that there has been a retreat from the news for many, many people who just feel like I can't take it anymore. I just can't watch television, or I can't read my local paper because it's just nothing but the negative. And we at Solutions Journalism are saying, you have to report the tough stuff, but you've also got to give people some blessed relief. And by searching for who's making progress against a problem, what happens is that you, as the reporter, feel so much better about your work and what you're doing for your community, because you are a very different kind of messenger when you're doing solutions journalism. And the message that you bring back are they're received in a different way. Our work has shown us that when you let people know that people are making progress about climate change, and they are all across the world. There are strategies in place and experiments in place and measures in place that are making a real difference in climate change. When you provide them with that information, it does give people a glimmer of hope. And it's never, we never try to oversell it. And we're not doing advocacy journalism here. But what we are doing is trying to rebalance the news so that it isn't all a steady drumbeat of what's wrong. The truth is, there's stuff to report on that's going right in the world, and the one way to remind yourself of this is to visit our website and sign up for what's called the Hub. You'll see it at solutionsjournalism.org. And when you sign up for the Hub, it will give you access to our story tracker. We have more than 9,000 stories in the tracker of bona fide solutions journalism, from legacy newspapers in the United States, internet startups, NPR affiliates, PBS, the major networks, the BBC, on and on and on and on, and smaller publications throughout the United States, including a number of notable representatives in Alabama at AL.com and the newspaper in Birmingham. There are a good number of news organizations along the Gulf Coast and in the Deep South that have taken training in solutions journalism and are finding that the readers respond, or listeners or viewers, and in a very positive way. So that's a bit of an overview. And when we get together to go through the training, I'm going to show you some examples from legacy newspapers and from network television and local television, where these reporters have taken upon themselves to try to go beyond just reporting on the problem to see how others are responding. We started off 6 years ago as a very small nonprofit based in New York. We have grown incredibly in the last 6 years, and I am one of a number of regional managers for solutions journalism. My territory is 11 states in the South. We have people in the Mid-Atlantic states, in New England. We have a Midwest representative, a Pacific Northwest, a Mountain West. We're pretty much everywhere these days. And we work with newsrooms, but we also work with J schools and journalism students. I've been working with independent college press over the last year. We did a lot of work with local television stations around the country. This is a real movement in journalism, and I really want to talk to you and to interact with you and to discuss what it is we're trying to accomplish, and to share with you some stories of how our principles and practices are working throughout the United States. How's that for an overview?
That's great, Michael. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We're getting, we have a few minutes left, and we got a great question, and we're also getting some good comments, but people just being thankful to be introduced to this resource. Professor George Daniels is on with us, and he's the evaluator and a member of the team here making this happen. But his question is great. First of all, he says, hope is a good thing. But he says, solutions journalism is not advocacy journalism. So what is the difference between the two?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Professor. You know, you can't be doing advocacy if one of the tenets of solutions journalism is you have to include the limitations of response in your reporting. It's evidence-based. You know, if I'm going out and I'm doing a story about a program that was, you know, put into place, let's say 2 years ago in Alabama, and we're trying to measure the effectiveness of that program, I can report about providing evidence of the progress that the program is making. But it's incumbent on me to also very clearly include the limitations of the response. Let's say it's running out of funding, or there aren't enough volunteers, or some of the original goals weren't met. You know, to be able to do solutions journalism, you must provide those limitations. And that stops you from ever appearing like you're advocating for something or for some cause or for some organization. What you're doing is reporting on that organization or that program. There's a real difference there. You know, we often say it takes the same energy, the same focus, the same commitment that you would put into investigative journalism. You use that same energy and those same standards when you take a step past the investigation and look at how others are dealing with the same problem. It takes rigor to do this work well. And, you know, solutions journalism always provides context and insight. It's very much a part of what you have to set out to do when you do a solutions journalism project. The hope is that you are reporting on things sometimes that can be replicated elsewhere. You know, an idea that could be used in another state, in another county. And we see this all the time, that, you know, we'll report on some development somewhere. And yes, you know, it has to be evidence-based. You have to be really clear about the ways in which it's working, to show it's working in the ways that it's not. But what happens is that it's a bit infectious, that it will result in other communities taking a look at it and saying, is this something that we should be considering in our town or in our state, in our county? And that's how you make progress, I think, as a society, is to learn from each other, learn from successes. And there's also a way to do solutions journalism about things that don't work, that fail. And we call it instructive failure, that there's so much that can be learned about a project that didn't meet its goals, to dig deep about why and what happened and what could happen in the future if people took what they learned and tried something new. So thank you, Professor, for that great question.
Well, I see that we already have comments about what a great resource Solution Journalism Network website is and the hub. And we've been using it in our journalism classes at Auburn, or really starting to try to use it more often. But he was talking about the 9,000 solutions journalism stories. But one of the great things about that website is they have subject areas. So if you're interested in the environment or racism or any topic, that's invaluable for any class you might be in or anything you need to research. And so I really recommend that we can jump on that right away.
Thank you for that endorsement. I think the Solutions Journalism Tracker is one of the great rabbit holes of American journalism. I mean, sometimes I go there in the afternoon and I get lost for a couple of hours because you bump into stories that make you say, I had no idea this was happening in the world. And, you know, whatever topic it is so, our database is so easily searchable and so clean that you just punch in your keywords and you'll find usually an array of stories. And it's very helpful for reporters because, number one, the sources in those stories provide potential sources for your work. You know, the people who are quoted become a ready resource for you. And then secondly, it's also a resource in giving you story ideas off your beat. Because so many of the entries that are found in the story tracker are stories that you could localize and appropriate. So I really, and thank you very much for bringing up the website, and thank you so much for suggesting using the tracker as a resource.
Are there any other questions for Michael?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, another professor. Okay, hello.
Hi,
yes.
Professor.
Yes, good morning. I think it's still morning. My question is, in order for you to be, and let me say, I do totally respect, you know, what you guys do over there, you know, it's very commendable. But in order for you to be able to be solution oriented, you pretty much have to be able to engage the community. And if that's the case, how does that differ from civic journalism then? Because civic journalism tends to focus on engaging the community to achieve, you know, the, you know, solutions, you know, to address, you know, social, you know, problems.
Yeah, I think they're cousins, actually, you know, because engagement with communities works so well with solutions journalism. It lends itself so well to creating town halls and bringing people together in small groups and large groups and virtual groups, because what you're doing is, as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, you know, you're giving people something new to discuss, a different angle, a different response to a problem. And, you know, we found that our listening events tied to solutions journalism have been very productive, and it leads to, frankly, more stories. One of the great advantages of bringing people together after solution story or a series or investigation is published is it begets more stories. And the story ideas come not from editors sitting in a room. It comes from the people who matter most, our listeners, our viewers, our audiences. And we certainly have seen that here. I live in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and we've been doing a series of virtual town halls on COVID-19. And from those virtual town halls, we have generated a list of more story ideas that we could complete coming from the people who are living the experience, you know, who have taken us into their neighborhoods and told us exactly what the problems are that are preventing them from getting the kind of treatment or information that they need. So, Professor, I just say that, you know, civic journalism and solutions journalism are, in some ways, doing very similar things. The one difference, I think, is in making certain that the reporting is evidence-based, that you're giving people measurable information and documentation about the progress being made by an institution or an organization. It's hard work to do it well, but it's so gratifying. It is so, so gratifying. And this comes from somebody, I mean, I'm 68 years old and been involved in daily journalism since the age of 15. And I've never done work that is more gratifying and soul satisfying than what I'm doing right now. I feel that this is what people are starving for, are thirsty for. They just want to be able to feel like our problems are not insurmountable. That they're looking to their news organizations for a feeling like they're part of our community too. And that's what happens when you do solutions journalism, I think, is that you are giving message to your audience that, hey, I'm part of this community. I live here. I care. I want things to get better. I want there to be a resolution to our problems. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's everything right with that.
Well, Michael, were you about to say something, Nan? Okay. Michael, thank you for bearing with the problems and coming through on the phone and talking with us
Sure.
in the morning. I know that you're sincere when you say that we'll figure out how you can offer the full workshop to everybody. And
we will.
Okay. Thank you. That'll be great.
And maybe I'll bring a special guest on board with me when we do it. We'll sweeten the pot a little bit.
Oh, thanks. Okay, that's I'm
All
curious
right.
now. Well, don't go anywhere. If you want to stay with us, we'd love to have you for tomorrow too. Our time's about up for today, and so I want to put Dr. Janai Plattenberg on the spot because she's up tomorrow morning. Let's see. Hello. Let me. Oh, there we go. You and George mentioned the survey that we sent out yesterday, but I just wondered if either one of you wanted to say anything to everybody before tomorrow. And,
Well, I guess we're looking forward to helping provide some tools and maybe some advice of how you can use multimedia and digital storytelling tools to report some of the stories that you all have mentioned today. You know, we've both been listening to some of the ideas that you talked about regarding the good in your communities and some of the bad things that maybe haven't got enough reporting. And so I know everyone's coming from different reporting or different storytelling levels, but we hope that we can try to fill in the gaps maybe where people are falling short in terms of skills or not knowing which tools to use, and just helping you all think through those so you can actually maybe go and report them yourselves, because thankfully we have these mobile newsrooms in our pockets these days. And so you're not necessarily needing to be a journalist with a newsroom and a staff of 50 people to go out and do these stories yourself. And so I hope that we can be of service to you all tomorrow.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much. Nan, you got any closing comments? Dr. Daniels, did you have any? I'm looking at chat.
It's been fascinating to hear about all the things that are happening around the state. I have like
3 pages of notes from different people presenting this morning. I think that that'll be a place to start tomorrow as we talk about ways to tell those stories. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Thank you.
And thank you all for engaging in the conversation. It was maybe an emergency conversation, but we made the most of it, and it was great to hear from everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to all of you. We'll stay on here another minute or two, but I will let you all go until tomorrow, and you'll get another email from me today, but it'll really just be, I guess, sending out the survey again for Dr. Daniels and Dr. Plattenberg, and maybe a couple other notes. So be in touch if you need me, and thank you again, Michael Davis. We're all waving at you, even though you can't see us. Bye, y'all.
Bye.